Former NFL VP of officiating, Dean Blandino, recently left the NFL after a long time and joined us here at Fox via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network. So let's start with that. Kristine's belief is largely mine, is that a handful of owners, Dean, have influence like Jerry Jones, and that they're looking at the NBA, and maybe they're looking at millennial ratings in TV, and there's the cord cutting and stuff. Is it true, in your opinion, that the NFL has suddenly, in the last 6 to 12 months, become much more celebration-friendly? Dean, why would that be?
Well, I think that part of it is that. Part of it is trying to reach the millennials and this new age of fans and having more fun. And there was a committee. I was part of that committee with different people at the league office in looking at our game, looking at in-game downtime, looking at how our fans watch the game, looking at eye tracking technology and where are their eyes going. So it definitely has been something that's ramped up. I would say it started even earlier than 6 to 12 months. This has probably been 2 to 3 years in the making.
When you're in those officiating meetings and rule meetings, and a handful of people in America ever have been, and Dean, you're now at Fox, you're one of those. There is something about the NFL, whereas baseball and golf are about tradition, NBA is about their star players. The NFL has always been about middle America. And when you're in those meetings, is it largely about what'll make a better TV product? Why are rule changes made generally?
3 things. I think when the competition committee gets together, they're thinking about a rule change, it's player safety, it's competitive equity, and then it's officiating consistency. That's the 3 things that they look at when they're going to change rules. And certainly a lot of these rules over the years have been slanted probably toward the offense because more scoring, more points is usually most fans correspond that to a more exciting game.
Right.
But that's been my experience over the past 20 years.
When you're in these vice president of officiating meetings, okay, who else is in these meetings? Give me a sense of the room when you're in these meetings. How many people, who's in there?
So it's the competition committee. So there's 9 members. So you have ownership represented, you have coaches, you have front office. There's liaisons from the league office, Troy Vincent from football operations. There's a group of people from football operations. And everybody's together and they're just talking about the game. They're looking at injuries and trends, potential trends on the injury tapes, so we can look at, is there a change we need to make the game safer and protect our players from unnecessary risk? And they're really just talking about the game. They're looking at statistical trends, analytics. It's grown so much over the course of my career at the NFL, and it's been amazing to watch.
Dean Blandino now here at Fox. I have argued that if you're trying something for 40 or 50 years and you can't get it right, then just eliminate it. I think overtime should be eliminated. The league would be fine with ties. When you were in those rooms, this year they've shortened 10 minutes, shortened it down to 10 minutes. So once again, the NFL's monkeying around with overtime. They can't figure it out. Has anybody ever argued what I believe is get rid of overtime?
Yours truly. I agree with you. And when we started talking about overtime and reducing it from 15 to 10 because we were worried about additional snaps, players playing a full quarter more of football and then potentially having to go play on Thursday. Well, if we're worried about player safety, then eliminate overtime and play to win in the regulation. It would make the last 2 minutes that much more exciting. If a team's sitting there with 30 seconds to go and the ball on their 20 and they know the game could end in a tie because there's no overtime, they're going to go for it. They're going to take chances, take risks.
Yes.
And we may end up with the game ending with a winner versus a tie, which we could still have a tie going 15 minutes additional in overtime. So I tend to agree with you. We did talk about that. I think there would be probably some serious backlash from the fans if we got rid of overtime. But when you really break it down and you say, okay, you got to play to win in regulation, I think ultimately that would be a good thing.
It would produce a more aggressive play calling in regulation. I agree. Now,
without question,
you're no longer in the NFL. You can be honest now. Is there anything in these meetings that would drive you crazy? Too much red tape. One guy having too much of a say. I mean, is there anything about the NFL and the rules and the officiating that used to drive you nuts?
Well, there's definitely a lot of red tape. That would drive me nuts. There's definitely things about that job that, like any other job, that annoy you. Dealing with, we have an officials union that we have to deal with, and most of the time it's a good collaboration, and sometimes we don't see eye to eye. I think on the rules part, I think the competition committee really does have the game, the best interests of the game at heart. I don't know if that's the case with everybody at the league office and around the league, but I know most of the people on the football side, the game is top priority.
Dean's first interview since coming to Fox. A big welcome to him. And along with Mike Pereira, gives us kind of a 1-2 punch in officiating, which is increasingly, for me as a fan, sometimes confusing. My perception about the NFL, and I've heard this through people through the years, that Jerry Jones has a lot of pull and Robert Kraft has a lot of pull. And that, Jerry watches that NFL network like a hawk. And if his Cowboys aren't in there, how powerful is Jerry? And, Jerry, the perception of Jerry is a cowboy. He went out and chased oil for years. He's kind of crazy. But when you talk about the ownership power rankings in this league, how much does Jerry have? What kind of influence have you noticed?
He's definitely influential. I've been in those meetings. I've sat in the league meeting with all of the owners together, and I know who speaks up and I know who sits back and just lets everything happen and takes a more guarded approach. There are owners like Mr. Jones, like Mr. Kraft, that are influential. There's a group of committees that the league forms, whether it's finance, technology, competition, and the clubs are equally represented, but there's a lot of politicking that goes on behind the scenes, and some owners are more influential than others, and they can make things happen behind closed doors, and I think that's part of the dynamic.
Dean, is there any pushback from any of the owners that the game is too offensive? Like, I like offense, too. I've always said that nobody likes defense except their team's defense. Everybody loves their own defense if it's great, but nobody wanted to watch the Ravens except the Raven fans when they were shutting everybody out. Is there a sense the league has perhaps become a little too offensive-minded?
I think that's something that the committee, the competition committee, has always been mindful of. I haven't experienced pushback from owners that the league is too offensive-minded. Whenever the competition committee looks at the health of the game, they look at certain things. Plays, number one, plays per game. That's your most important stat. That's your product, okay? Everything else is just fluff. It's plays per game. And then they look at points. And there's a sweet spot, 44, 45 points per game. That's a sweet spot. They look at passing yards per game, all of those things, because the fans do like passing. They do like points. When you look at when the league really took major leap in terms of popularity, it's when they put in the illegal contact rule in the 70s that opened up the passing game. And I think that's been something the committee has understood, and they've been mindful of as they've evolved in terms of rules changes.
It's interesting. Baseball tends to struggle with evolving. They've done a better job, but it took them forever on instant replay. And yet the NFL is easily the most popular sport in America, has been willing to change constantly. There's a certain dynamic to the NFL as if they see themselves as the chaser, not the chasee. I don't know what that is. It's almost like baseball's called the national pastime, and so football always feels like that. Maybe it's just the culture of football, but if there is a willingness in your sport to do that. Is there an explanation for it? Is that too macro? Is it too out there?
No, I don't think it's too out there. I've experienced that. I think we've always, at the NFL, we've always challenged the status quo, and you have to honor tradition. And you have to honor those that built the foundation, but you can't just rest on your laurels. The NFL is the most popular sport, but it won't stay that way if the NFL just says, yeah, we're the most popular and we're just going to leave it alone. There's a lot of smart people at the league office that are working day and night to make sure it stays the most popular sport. And I think that's what's made the league so successful.
How scared are they of CTE? How fearful are they? Is it hush-hush?
That's something I think the league has done a tremendous job recently in being transparent, being open about it, saying, look, the science has evolved and we're concerned about the effects that CT has on our players and the former players that have been diagnosed with it. And I think the league has done a really nice job of just being transparent and open and working with, whether it's technology companies, helmet companies, to improve our equipment, to improve our helmets and make the game safer. So I think the league is certainly it's not hush hush. It's out there, and the league is really working to make the game safer.
Former NFL VP of officiating, now at Fox. Welcome in, Dean Blandino. Absolute pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Colin.